officer to be elevated to the rank of Lieutenant General, the gender distinction, would you say, is a thing of past now?
I think journey to the top for any domain, for any gender, is not easy. For a woman who has to multitask and continues to run a home, her own family, her own profession, and balance it all out.
From 2006 onwards, I see so many women coming into the police service. Earlier, there was a kind of stigma, people would think police is a hardcore man's job, male-dominated job. You have to go out, you have to be in uniform, which is not feminine.
A lot of people came to me and they were actually giving condolences that now that you've cleared UPSC also, but now you have to go in police service, so it will be very hard for you. But let me tell you the values that you inculcate in your children. And in our family, we were never treated as daughters are different.
It was an honor that I was chosen to lead that role from the front. So this was against any gender, this was against any perception. But the seniors who had actually given me this opportunity to serve there in that post, it was their belief that I could do that, and it was irrespective of me being a lady or not.
Namaskar and a very, very warm welcome to this special episode of DD Dialogue in our series India at 74. And today, this edition of DD Dialogue is dedicated to all those women who have actually broken the glass ceiling. Not as the cliche goes, but they've actually done that in their respective domains. And this episode of DD Dialogue is also dedicated to all these women who have this immense sense of firepower, who continue to inspire us. These are the women on the show, and I'm sure there are many who are going to subsequently join the DD National Network who have done something which has not been even attempted before. Today, on DD Dialogue, we're going to talk about women in bureaucracy, women in decision-making, women in policing, women in policy making, women in defense. These are not ordinary women, and because viewers, the time has come whenever we talk about women empowerment, this has gone much beyond empowering. It's about all these women that are on our show. They continue to rise the rungs of policy making and decision making apparatus in our country under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let me quickly welcome all of them. Thank you so much, Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanetkar, for joining us. We're really honored to have you today on DD Dialogue. Third women officer to be elevated to the rank of Lieutenant General, but of course this being the second highest position in this office, and first from her domain to be there where she is right now. Thank you. And very, very glad to have with us D. Rupa, IPS. She is currently IG Police Railways Karnataka, but she's also the first woman Home Secretary, I believe, in any state right now in Karnataka. D. Rupa, really honored to have with us. And with D. Rupa, let me also welcome Dr. Sehrish Asgar. She's also many firsts to her credit. Those who have covered Jammu Kashmir very, very closely, especially post-abrogation of Article 370. This is a very familiar name. Sehrish Asgar is IAS, she's IPS. She right now is Director Communications, Jammu Kashmir Government, and subsequently I'm going to tell our viewers the other first to her credit, and very glad to have with us also PD Nitya with us, a very young and dynamic IPS officer, one of the rarest IPS officers posted in Jammu Kashmir, the conflict-ridden Jammu and Kashmir, though now it's pretty peaceful. One amongst the three lady officers here. Viewers, Nitya has been posted in Srinagar for a very long time, the most volatile zones in the valley, and right now she's SP North Jammu. Nitya, very glad to have you on the show. I want to quickly go to Lieutenant General Kanetkar. Quickly, how difficult was your journey, or was it not that difficult? And finally, the piping ceremony has been talked about widely, but any facts which we really don't know about, because that firepower, you always wanted to occupy this honorable chair, or it happened subsequently?
Thank you so much, Sakal. Firstly, a real pleasure to be on this forum with so many dynamic women. Journey is never easy, but then I think it's the challenges when turned into opportunities which makes it worth its while. And as you climb up to the top, I think it's only when you reach one peak you really realize that there's another one ahead of you. And I think that's what makes you go on. I think journey to the top for any domain, for any gender, is not easy. For a woman who has to multitask and continues to run her home, her own family, her own profession, and balance it all out, I think it gets all the more challenging and therefore all the more rewarding when you reach there. And just to add to that pipping ceremony, I think it's sort of part of that deal, that there's a double fun when, you know, both the wheels are aligned. And I think that's why it was talked on, because while supporting each other, we made it by growing together without growing apart. And I think that was the pleasure with which my husband pipped me when we both reached the highest rank.
Growing together but without growing apart. And I'm going to come to Ms. Rupa, first woman Home Secretary in the state like Karnataka. You've been there. Hardcore tough cop is what everyone talks about who has been working under you. But most importantly, do you see some sort of a paradigm shift in the last decade or perhaps 5 years when it comes to tough postings, women, cops, the gender bias, the gender distinction, would you say is a thing of past now?
Yes, definitely there's a paradigm shift. I joined the service in the year 2000, and I got UPSC All India rank of 43rd. And I chose to be in IPS because I was in NCC for a very long time. I had passed ABC certificates. I had represented the state in the prestigious Republic Day camp, which is held at Delhi every year. And Mrs. Kirti had addressed us. So I got inspired and, got fascinated with the uniform. And with such a high rank as 43rd, I chose to be in IPS, and lucky that I was allotted the home card of my state. I definitely see paradigm shift. See, when we joined in 2000, of course, our batch had more women compared to other batches. But then after that, after 5-6 years of my joining, from 2006 onwards, I see so many women coming into the police service. Earlier, there was a kind of stigma, people would think police is a hardcore man's job, male-dominated job. You have to go out, you have to be in uniform, which is not feminine. You will have to go late hours in the night, and you won't be able to take care of children or perform your duty as a dutiful daughter-in-law or a wife or a mother, and so on. So many stereotypes were there. But after 2006, I see too many people, girls choosing IPS, coming into IPS. I think in every batch there are now about 25-30 girls coming in, young girls, and definitely there is a paradigm shift in the minds of the people who head the government, the political executives. Earlier, when we were very few, they used to think multiple times, oh, this woman, whether she'll be able to handle this posting or not, this is a tough one.
This woman, whether she will be able to handle this posting, and then you have the first woman IPS officer coming from a state like Jammu Kashmir, and I'm sure Dr. Asgar, when you decided to crack the exam, I mean, I'm talking about IPS, then you did your IAS, you're a medical doctor by profession, coming from a conflict-ridden state, and when that happened, it was at the peak of terrorism, militancy, during your training days. I want to know, was it tough for you to break that perception, especially, I'm talking about Kashmir, because things then, socially, politically, were very different and tough at that point in time?
Yeah, you're right, because at the time when I got selected into IPS, I was the first woman from the state who would be joining IPS. So I basically was, a lot of people came to me and they were actually giving condolences that now you are
Condolences.
going to, yeah,
Okay.
now that you have cleared UPSC also, but now you have to go in police service, so it will be very hard for you. But let me tell you the values that you inculcate in your children. And in our family, we were never treated as daughters are different and sons are different. And we were given the same kind of importance, we were given the same kind of values. And for because of that reason, I was able to join the service, and not only join the service, I also performed very well in the service. But it was because of my own choice that I wanted to be in administration that I appeared. Let me tell you, I handled some of the very tough cases in Jammu Kashmir.
Absolutely,
Very, very,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes.
Infamous cases in J&K at that time.
Yes.
And many women came up to me, many children, many girls came up to me saying that we want to be an IPS officer, we want to be like you, so what can we do? So even today, when I have joined the service as an IAS officer, I see it's not just that you feel that you have achieved something, but when somebody else tells you that please guide us, how can we do this? So I really feel proud. And now I see so many women in the past UPSC exam, that the result that came, there were so many girls. But let me tell you, there is a lot to be done.
Lot to be
Just a
done.
good news that yes, because only 24% women are in the services. If you talk about
Yes.
only civil services, only 14% women are there in the parliament. If you
Yes.
talk about the representation at the parliament,
Yes.
and only
okay.
4% in corporate leadership.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
lot has to be done.
It has to be done. Lot of distance needs to be covered. But taking this to Nitya, I remember post abrogation 370, you were the two women in the entire administrative apparatus dealing and firefighting on daily basis. You being not from Jammu and Kashmir, but choosing this being your state cadre, though it doesn't make a difference for an IPS officer as far as postings are considered. But for a young and dynamic officer to be posted in Kashmir at the peak, how difficult was it? I'm sure you were very mentally tough, you still are, but was it difficult initially when you were chosen for that task?
Yeah, I remember, Sakal, when we met last year during this abrogation of Article 370. I won't say that it was difficult to serve there, but it was an honor that I was chosen to lead that role from the front. So this was against any gender, this was against any perception. But the seniors who had actually given me this opportunity to serve there in that post, it was their belief that I could do that, and it was irrespective of me being a lady or not. So I performed my duty there like an officer, and who knew what to do and who has to lead from the front. So there are no ifs and buts. Whether I am a woman officer who is able to handle the situation, or whether it should be a male officer who would lead it. It is more about the capability, and I'm very blessed and very fortunate that my seniors had believed in me and they give this opportunity.
Miss Rupa, you're also the first Kannadiga woman to be there at the helm of affairs in policing in Karnataka. When it comes to policing, you think it's now, like she mentioned, the whole gender bias, the whole idea of, I wouldn't say bias, but then the parity has been attained more or less. There's nothing like easy postings or tough postings.
I think it got cut. I couldn't hear.
No, we can hear you and see you. We can hear you and see you, please.
Okay, I didn't hear the middle part of the question.
Okay, I'll repeat. Okay, rolling, Anna, continue. Okay, so Ms. Rupa, I want to ask you now, when it comes to policing, this whole idea of bias, soft postings for women, tough postings for men, volatile zones, can women really manage those zones? Karnataka, well, it has its own political volatility and law and order issues that are associated with every state. But overall, what's your view? Do you think that whole bias, that whole bias is now over for women in uniform? It's not now about there's a women in uniform. It's about uniform per se.
Yeah. So the bias was there. It is reducing now with more and more women coming and performing these tasks well. There is an added confidence in the minds of the people who post us here and there that okay, women can handle, and women handle things differently. We don't do the same thing as men because our emotional, constitutional, mental makeup is different, and what is required in these tough postings is a tough mind, which woman already has. So I think it would be fair to say woman is the weaker sex or the fairer sex and delicate gender and wouldn't be able to buy all this. And the toughness is in mind, and women have already proven being in tough positions that they can lead, they can multitask, and they can handle things very well. So this mindset has to further change with more and more women coming, and then more and more women handling difficult postings effectively. Then I think the stereotype will reduce to the maximum extent.
Okay. So we've moved. Let's move on, and like everybody will come in, please. But please feel free to come in whenever you want, any one of you.
Yeah, I would love to come in.
That one question that I wanted to ask you very specifically. The whole narrative of fairer sex, weaker sex, physically weak, whatever, that is not considered at all. I mean, that is that really a consideration? We have women fighter pilots. I have some data with me. It says Indian Army has 6,000 plus women posted at various positions. Indian Air Force has 1,878 and Indian Navy has 685. And let me quickly go through this. Now, this is very interesting. India to 2017, there was addition of 949 women. And by the time we came to 2020, 102. Subsequently, we are adding number of women. In 2008, 818. In 2019, 364 women were added. Indian Air Force also, the number went on increasing from 2017 to 2020. Similarly, the number went on from increasing from 2017 to 2020 in Indian Navy. So every year, exponentially, not really, but then yes. Induction of women continues in forces.
Yes. I think that's an excellent statistics that you've shared, and it's a fact. And I think about two issues which I wanted to come in. Firstly, I wanted to compliment Rupa about hitting the nail on the head. Two aspects that she brought on I want to reinforce. One is that it's got nothing to do with a fairer sex or a delicater sex, because it's not, everything is not about, physical. We are nowhere trying to compete on the same platform and say we are the same. They're two different genders. Let's accept it. And we are fit in our own capabilities, but everything is not just brawn. There's brain and brawn both. So that's one thing. And the second point that she brought out, I think was very relevant about having a capacity to multitask. And the second is that whereas you kind of, rule with your head, I think you need to lead with the heart. And I think this aspect which women are bringing into the positions of power, because I think both of them brought out, and it's the same in the armed forces, they were looked in at as a competent officer. I mean, I come on, I come on shows like this, which, bring in women together. And yes, there's a beautiful camaraderie that when women get together, we love it. But at the same time, I don't think the organization ever made me feel any different. I always looked at myself as an officer. And I think this is echoed by whether it's Nitya or Rupa. And I mean, this is, I think, the crux of it. And this bringing in this inclusivity and diversity to an organization, I think is taking the organization also forward, because the values have been accepted, have been appreciated, and opportunities are opening up. So it's a two-way cycle where the organization is opening its doors to more and more women, and the women seeing role models, seeing capabilities, are themselves ready to take on challenges.
So this, whenever we used to talk about women in the previous government, would you say, Dr. Asghar, there has been a departure now? Earlier, the focus was on let's give them opportunities, let's empower women, let's put them to test. And now, in the last 1 decade, perhaps under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, realistically speaking, do you think this is not now only confined to opportunities and empowerment? This is about put them where they are equally competent, particularly in the policy making, particularly in the decision making process in governance, in government sector, at the top.
Yeah, exactly. I basically think that times have changed. If we see that in past couple of years also, the number of women that are feeding at least into the pipelines that feed the leadership positions, they have increased.
Okay.
That come out to apply even for services, I can talk about civil services, they have increased. So basically there are 3 parameters. First is education. The second is that you get an opportunity. And the third is that, that even if you have that opportunity, you should have that confidence that you can do it. Women, I think they have proven themselves in every sphere that they can be the best administrators, they can be the best leaders in every sphere. Now what we need to inculcate in women is that self-confidence that they can do it. And men also need to understand that now the times are changing.
Okay.
It's not like that old traditional women roles that there are some women roles and there are some male roles. And even in postings, there are no such women-only portfolios.
Yes.
That you can put women in only these portfolios. They cannot perform these tasks. And need to understand that. And I think I think the mothers, they also need to make their sons understand that times are changing, and they have to take merit into consideration. When the qualifications are equal, they need to be put in equal circumstances. They have to be put all those positions, all those postings.
Okay.
If their qualifications are same, so that bias should go. It is going. That glass ceiling is breaking.
Okay.
But I think that now.
Okay, Nitya, so the focus is now on competence and capability. When you're out in the field, again, I'm emphasizing you come from a very volatile zone. I mean, you've been in Kashmir when situations were pretty tough on ground. I'm talking about 370 abrogation. In fact, both of you were there, Dr. Asghar and you. Did it matter? Did it actually matter to the people at the top? Or you were there just like any other person in uniform, maintaining law and order, maintaining internal security under lockdown conditions, under band conditions, when there were terror attacks and all of that?
Yeah, just like Sakalai said earlier also, it was more of my capability. Maybe I was able to do justice to my role that I was posted there. And I would tell you one thing that we are going through. There is always a prejudice among our people, I would say men, women equally, where we try to segregate what kind of roles, what kind of jobs it is suited for a woman to do. And I would say that let the woman decide and choose for herself. If she is choosing herself to be in the armed forces or in police or in administrative service, it is her decision, not the society to make whether this is more of a woman kind of role, as Sarah ma'am has already put. So when I was given this task to be in the SDPO Nehru Park in Srinagar, it was my decision also. I was willing to work there. I was willing to contribute my part. So neither it was forced on me, neither it was given me as, like let us have a lady police officer face or something like that.
Very, very important point. Yes. So there was no distinction.
If I may interrupt.
Yeah, I was coming to you. So there is no distinction. You had more than 3 million viewers in your TED Talk sessions, Nirupa. So challenges you've been always talking about for women in uniform. But then challenges is fine. But can we safely say say that there are no distinctions anymore when women are in uniform and when women are in the highest rungs of bureaucracy like Dr. Asgar. Nirupa.
Yeah, there are distinctions, but I think times are changing. You know, earlier, when women were there are many women already in the policy making. Policy making is mainly the lookout of the IAS, and there are umpteen number of women in IAS. Actually in the field jobs, more male-dominated jobs like armed forces or police, women are not seen in large numbers. That is where they have to improve, you know, so that the status of women also rises. But that, having said that, even when let's say even in IAS, when there are more women, you know, generally women would be put to women and child welfare department secretary or some such soft job. You know, people think she's a woman, she can understand women and children better, she will be able to perform there well, give that to her. So, you know, those kind of distinctions were still there, but last government, I'm very happy personally that, you know, woman was made Raksha Mantri, the woman was made External Affairs Minister and so on, which are more a male forte. And and I think that is a big signal. And this mindset that women can only handle soft ones, you know, soft jobs, women, child, some information, this, that, and so on. I think that distinction has to go. It is still persistent, but I think it will go. I'm very confident and optimistic about it.
We had a full-time Raksha Mantri, women. We are having a full-time Finance Minister, Vitt Mantri, that too is a woman. And we also have 2 women in the CCS, Cabinet Committee on Security, Lieutenant General Kanitkar. Now, I think that is a big first. Again, we are talking about 2 women in CCS. Again, a departure from the previous governments, the way the women were positioned. Lieutenant General Kanitkar and then Dr. Asgar. Yes.
I think what's important is 2 aspects. One is the capability being reinforced, and secondly, what Rupa brought out, a choice being accepted. Because there have a change that has come in the policy makers. For example, I mean, you were talking about Kashmir. I was also there as the MG Med in Udhampur, handling the operations for Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh just before this previous appointment. And it was the first time the woman had taken on this role, and I was traveling all over the entire area. But when I volunteered for it. And the moment I volunteered, no one hesitated in giving me this opportunity. They didn't say, no, but you're a woman, how can you, you know, you'll have to go to Leh and you'll have to go to the border areas and blah, blah. No, it was, okay, you want to do it? Yes, go ahead. And I think it was an amazing opportunity to serve at that time when it was most challenging. So that's aspect of it. And second thing, what you're talking of, I mean, we are talking of, an Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Yes,
and you're looking at becoming, so an Atmanirbhar Bharat will be Atmanirbhar when every individual is Atmanirbhar. And in that, women are half the population. So if you want to get them to be Atmanirbhar, self-independent, capable, you have to nurture them to cross that so-called Lakshman Rekha or societal norms which have been created because of gender stereotyping.
Yes. Have we, Dr. Asgar, you for one can very, very confidently say, I mean, you did it. You were the first woman from Kashmir who did it, IPS, then IAS, and being BC of Badgam, you initiated many governance reforms, and most importantly, your Sukoon project during COVID times in Jammu and Kashmir was a huge hit, and you were given that freedom to do it. You do it. You're not there because you're a woman. You're there because you're an administrator.
Exactly. In fact, I believe that women do not have to emulate, and they have to develop their own style of leadership. I'm a firm believer that women have a different type of intuition. They have more emotional intelligence. And I believe that even in skills, the kind of work that is required, they attune themselves, they learn, they have the learning ability. So in fact, when I started this Sukoon initiative, it was very early. It was just the pandemic had started in the world, it had not spread to India. All my bosses, they told me, yes, it's a very good initiative, and nobody told me that no, you should not try new things, try to do the conventional thing, it's not in your budget, how can you do this? And I feel that now that times are changing, they also realize that if you have the brains and you have the capability, you can actually do marvels. And I believe that that people of Jammu and Kashmir, the youngsters here, have a lot of talent. They have a lot of talent pool.
Okay.
Women especially, yes, women especially. I think if they get proper guidance, they can do marvels.
Okay.
And the kind of leadership that we require now is from women.
Okay, so Nirupa, the whole era, Nirupa, if you could hear me, we are done with the era of tokenism when it came to opportunities and putting women at the top. The tokenism era is over.
One thing that still persists, which I have experienced, sometimes, there is in all these field postings, there is so much of independent decision that you can take and, discussion also. Those times, when a woman is seen as more speaking out, taking her own decisions, it's still, the environment is still of a kind that, it intimidates other people in power, or the colleagues or the seniors or juniors. So I think this mindset has to go. And, when the woman is there in a situation, and if she's doing well, it's fine. As long as she's no competition to the men there, they will eulogize her, they'll praise her, appreciate her. But when it comes to competition, I still find that men form a clique and, try and keep out women from the most prestigious postings where there are a lot of vested interests involved.
It's a very interesting statement. Lieutenant General Kanitkar, you agree with her? Do you?
I think it's a little different in the because I'm from a medical background. So I think what happens in medical, this thing that we really work shoulder to shoulder, we train together, and we're working on a more of a clinical field. So till there, definitely. And then after that, as we rise up, we are so few that I think this doesn't really come in so much with us.
Okay, and Nitya, I just want to ask you, Nitya, you've interacted at all levels, and this is for Dr. Asgar also. Nitya first. A little bit focus on women in administrative roles at the grassroots level, for example, panchayats. Maybe empowering them, training them, empowering them with skills. For example, when you go to rural villages in Srinagar, Jammu Kashmir, since you posted there, you see an improvement, or you think there lot needs to be done. There's a wide gap between urban and rural women occupying important roles. Nitya.
As far as education is concerned, in my experience of Srinagar, I found the girls and women to be more educated than their counterparts. For example, if there are 3 kids in the family and there are 2 daughters, they would be having a more educational qualification than their brother. So overall, if we see here in Jammu also, the education role is more, the education qualification of a woman is more here. But then the same is not seen equally in the decision making. That has to start early from the home, from the economic opportunities, from the financial opportunities, so that they are empowered at every step and they can actually be financially independent, which can complement their education as well. So if these things are not going simultaneously, then whatever skills or say education we are imparting, it is going to a dead end at some point of time without making them realize their full potential.
Dr. Asgar, what are your thoughts on this?
You talked about the panchayats. Let me tell you, the situation in panchayats is better. Reason being is the affirmative action that we have done for women. It has played a great role because we have given reservation to women. So if you find that, you will find 40% people in the panchayats are women. So it's a totally different. And now because the laws are such that you have to have a woman in the panchayat, so now the women are also realizing that they have some important roles in the society and that they need to come in public spaces, which was not seen earlier. So I think affirmative action in certain spheres is required, where you see that such rural women, for example, even not coming in public spheres. So I think giving affirmative action settings in rural areas, especially where people are not that educated and women are not coming to public spheres, has been a very positive step. And I believe that women in rural areas, I've served in Punjab also.
Yes.
They are very strong. They are very strong. It's not
Yes.
like they're not timid. They are very strong. And but the idea is the society is changing. It is still a feudal society which is progressing, and I believe it will.
Okay. Okay.
When more and more women come in the public sphere, they will also realize that they have some strengths.
Yes. So this is an era for self-made women. We're going to take a short break, viewers. We've got these women at the top of policy making, decision making, policing, administrative and bureaucracy. We take a short break. On the other side, we'll take final comments on DD Dialogue. Please don't go away.